Well, hello, Toreros, far, near and far. It is Wednesday, the beginning of week 12, and it is the 17th of November, if you can already believe it. Next week is Thanksgiving. Unbelievable. Where does the time go? Anyway, I'm sorry about the delay in getting my weekly video out, but as you know, I've been chatting with you all over the last 3 or 4 days, and yesterday was a pretty big day for me because I get to talk with 7 of you, 4 of you on Monday and 2 of you on Saturday, and it's, as always, it's really great to catch up, and I really enjoy the time we get to spend together. It is always far too brief. And so I cherish the time we get to talk about lit review, get to talk a little bit about your lives, get to talk about, how busy you are and what you're doing and the things you're engaged in and all that kind of stuff. So I do greatly appreciate you spending your willingness to spend the time with me and talk about things and hope. I do hope. It is for a purpose, and I do hope that we get to your whatever we're talking about, whatever wisdom I can impart. It's useful to you, and that's the reason why we have them is for use, for utility and to kind of troubleshoot a little bit if necessary and talk things through and all that kind of stuff. So based on my conversations with you, and like I said, I wanted to wait to actually do my weekly chat until after we'd all had a chance to talk with you. Just a few items from those conversations that came out, and so let me without further delay, let me get to my screen if I can find. Oh, there it is. Okay, good. All right, good. All right. Well, that's not exactly what I was looking for, but here we go. Okay, here it is, and let's get to the slideshow. As always, this thing is there. Okay, slideshow from the top. Okay, so like I said, it is week 12, and it just boggles my mind how fast this stuff has gone. So this semester has gone just unbelievable. And next week again, it's Thanksgiving week for those who are in countries that do celebrate Thanksgiving. So anyway, let's get on to what we're gonna talk about today. This is, like I say, from our discussions, and I was having a chat on Saturday, and I asking how things were going, and the answer was, well, I can see it now. I can see it, and that's really an important milestone when you can see what you have. It's not when you start out, you're looking at all this literature, just kind of this big amorphous blob, this giant forest of green, and there isn't much, you can't distinguish one thing from the next. But now you're starting to see those trees. You're starting to see that it's, your forest is made up of these individual living, breathing components. And so hopefully that you all are able to see what it is that you have and the direction that you're going in, that you've been filling in, your outline, adding the literature and using that as your guide. So that's kind of where I think everybody is at this point in time, which is good. That's a good milestone to be at. And you really should be writing now. It's with 4 weeks left, it's a matter of, there is some addition of literature, as you continuously move through, as you keep reading and revising and revising and reading and revising, you may be adding literature in and taking things out as it suits your, the story that you're telling. But that's really kind of where we should all definitely be in a kind of a writing mode. Okay. And I was Monday talking to one of your colleagues, and I was trying to get a handle on, where, not the process, but on some of the just sort of the sequencing and trying to figure out how things fit together. And so what we did, we created a little theoretical model, and that I found it to be super helpful. I mean, it partly is helpful for me because I'm a kind of a dumbass when it comes to the things that you're looking at and things that you're studying. I really don't know a lot about it, about those things. But we talk through what, how kind of the sequencing and how one thing builds on next, and so in how the literature kind of fits together, and kind of where he wants to go with the literature and what he wants to show. And so we created this little theoretical model. And for those of you who were with me in evaluation theory and then evaluation practice, remember we created these theoretical models. It's the same kind of thing. You can do the same thing exactly for your lit review. The outline is one thing. That's a great thing to have. It's a nice thing to follow. But if you're trying to see how things actually fit together, if you create a little theoretical model, from your introduction and what you're trying to show all the way to the kind of the end, that it might be helpful to you. I don't know. It's something you consider anyway. I was talking with another one of your colleagues on Monday, and she was telling me about her peer writing groups. Unfortunately, it's a luxury that we don't really have now for her, because she's in San Diego. She has a group of people that she gets together with via Zoom on Sunday afternoons, I think. Yes. And it's helpful. It's really helpful to have lots of other eyes on your page, on your lit review, and supporting each other, and kind of holding each other accountable. I wish our discussion board that I set up in Blackboard was kind of supposed to do that to a certain extent. But because you can always, you've got email addresses, you can always share your writing with your classmates. There's nothing wrong with that at all. That's a good thing to do. I didn't really, I don't know why I didn't think of it or encouragement, but then then when we were talking about it, it's like, oh man, we should have been kind of doing this from the beginning. But be that as it may, we're still 4 weeks out. We still have 4 weeks left, and you can get in touch with your classmates, people that and if you want them to read through, ask them if they want to read through it and offer their insights. Nothing wrong with that. The same with sending drafts to our writing center. I've encouraged people to do this all, well, not all along. A few weeks ago, I started thinking about it and promoting this idea. But it's a good idea that where you are now in the writing process, once you have something fairly well formulated, send it to the writing center, and they can help. I mean, I'm good in a lot of things, but not everything. I don't pick up everything. So the writing center can help you in shaping and thinking through some things. I mean, I try to do that as best I can, but it's always good to get, like I say, if you have peer writing groups, you have, sending drafts to the writing center, it's all good. And there's no shame in that at all. I mean, I think, had I had a writing center when I was going through, I think I would have sent my drafts to the writing center. As it turns out, when I was writing my dissertation, I think I was telling somebody this yesterday. When I was doing my dissertation, it was as writing is, it can be messy at times, and you're not necessarily thinking clearly about things, so that your writing reflects that. So the chairman of my committee said, well, once he goes on, I use an editor for everything. I go, what do you mean? He goes, when I write manuscripts to submit to peer-reviewed journals, I send the manuscript to an editor who helps me to, with my thinking things through and formatting and, and sequencing of information and, suggesting, maybe getting rid of some things or, fleshing things out a little bit more. And so I did that. I sent the same editor that he uses. I sent my dissertation to, and it was like night and day. I got to tell you, it was fantastic. When I got it back, I mean, it wasn't exactly cheap, but I'm telling you, it was money well spent. And so here you've got a writing center that's free. You don't have to spend any money. No cashola going out the door. So I am encouraging you when you get to a point where you've got it pretty well fleshed out and you've got everything in that you want to have in, send it along to them and they'll have a look-see and give you some ideas. The whole idea, part of this idea, I remember that you have an audience, right? So you're telling a story, you're discussing your findings in the literature in the areas of your scholarly interest, the areas where you're going to be a scholar, you're going to be an expert, right? And you're telling us a story. You're telling us what the literature is saying and what it's not saying. Okay, so you take us from the beginning, the introducing it, and you're taking us down to some sort of summary and a logical conclusion, a point of departure for your dissertation proposal. Like I think I bar none. I think I told everybody this is a stopping. This is not the end of your literature review. Obviously, it's going to be you're using it for your part A, and you're going to be using it for your dissertation proposal and for your dissertation. So it serves many, many functions, but it's not for this course, when you turn it in on the 17th of December, that's to satisfy the requirements of this course. And it's in part because, the way programs are designed is that there's accountability built in. Lit review is, this on the 17th of December, it's one kind of a form of accountability. And then your part A is another form of accountability. Your dissertation proposal is another form of accountability, and so on and so forth. So, but the idea is that your audience, you can't assume that we know anything. Now I know a lot about what it is, the interesting things that you're doing. And I have to say, everyone has got some interesting literature to review and some potentially interesting study, to carry out. So, I've definitely been learning a lot from just reading the drafts and talking to you about your lit reviews and stuff. But basically, you're telling us the story. You're introducing these concepts, these ideas. You're taking us through in a logical sequence, and then you get to the end where you kind of summarize everything. And at that point, it's where you're thinking, you're talking a little bit about where, what you were able to tell us a lot, but then there's stuff that you couldn't tell us because it's just not in the literature, right? It doesn't exist, or it's poorly, the research was really poorly conducted. It was really bad methodology, what have you. So, that's at that point, when you get to that point, then the next step with your dissertation proposal is, that's, I've been saying this over and over and over again. It's the aims and the objectives of your study are to fill the gaps that your literature review pointed out. Okay, whether it's a methodological gap, whether it's a theoretical gap, whatever it may be, the lit review kind of takes us from this idea all the way down to the end, sort of a logical conclusion. So I'll tell you sort of my own lit review. So, like you, having to do a literature review, ours was called a qualifying paper. Same exact thing. It's just different nomenclature, different programs, different nomenclature. Same thing, exactly. And what's interesting, I took a look at it today, and it was 44 pages with with references. It's like, okay, but in my dissertation it was only 28 pages, so go figure, right? But the point of what the story I'm going to tell you, and I told others people this, is that so my interest is at the time was, and well still is, international development, and more specifically about how international development conducts its monitoring and evaluation functions, right? So for all the money that the countries of the North, which are like Denmark and Sweden and Belgium and England and the United States, for all the money that these countries give to developing countries, the countries of the South, as they're called, all this money, there's an accountability function built in. So money goes to like non-government organizations, and then maybe it passes down to, at a more community level. But basically, there are people that carry out the development work. There's organizations that carry out development work, and so these aid agencies dictate, whatever you want to call it. They say, okay, this is how you're going to tell us. There's always accountability, right? Fiscal accountability, outcomes, process kinds of accountability, outcome accountability, make sure that they're, what they're paying for, there's the outcomes that they expect to see are actually they're seeing, So anyway, I was looking at this international development, looking at some of the issues in the monitoring and evaluation aspect of international development. And I was talking about how, because the countries of the North, they're saying, well, this is how you have to do it. These are the indicators, you have to use in the monitoring process. These are the measures you have to use to determine, outcomes and impact and things like that. So there's no empowerment, so there's no self-determination. The projects that are carried out, you have very, very specific, it's very specific about how you're supposed to measure outcomes and stuff like that. So my argument is that, okay, well, the fact of the matter is that if people are being told what it is they have to do, in terms of the monitoring and evaluation function, then they're going to lose, they're going to be disempowered, and they're not going to be self-determined. Okay. And so going through the literature on self-determination and the empowerment theories, explaining what that is, explaining what self-determination theory is in the context of international development and the spending of money and the monitoring and evaluation of those projects and programs. Anyway, so when I got to my dissertation proposal, the only things that I kept were, I didn't have anything to do with, nothing to do with international development. So all that stuff went out. My explanation of, sort of the explaining how international development works, the sort of how monitoring and evaluation works, kind of explaining all that kind of stuff, and then trying to tying in these different theoretical constructs, but my focus of my dissertation proposal was only on those two psychological constructs of empowerment and self-determination. So all the other stuff, what I'm trying to tell you is that all the other stuff about international development, that didn't even factor into my dissertation proposal. But the main aspects of it, the empowerment theory, self-determination theory, were at the forefront of that dissertation proposal. But the other interesting thing is that in my lit review, in my qualifying paper, I didn't explain the constructs fully. I explained them enough so that people could understand what they're about. But when I went back into my dissertation proposal, I put the literature review in, it kind of put it into my chapter 2 in as a draft. Okay. I realized that I hadn't fully explained these theoretical constructs. So I had to go back in, and I had to go back into the literature, and I had to go back in and I had to explain them more fully, because the survey that I created, to measure these two different constructs in order to eliminate a certain amount of some biases based on the measurement, the tool of the measurement tool. If I wanted to measure empowerment and self-determination, I had to make sure I was measuring the full construct. You had to measure each one fully. So, as it was in my lit review, it was only partial. I only explained partially. And so if I used the same literature in my dissertation, if I just pulled that empowerment and self-determination part out and put it into my dissertation proposal, then when I was creating my survey, I wouldn't have been fully measuring the construct as presented in the literature. I would have only been measuring part of the construct when I should have been measuring the full construct. So as it was, thankfully, I realized this, and so the point is that, the lit review, I didn't have everything in. And then when I moved stuff over to the lit review, I took stuff out. The whole international development stuff went out. And I just kept the empowerment, self-determination stuff. And then some other, when I talked about a particular intervention that would build on empowerment and self-determination theories. And so this intervention was part of my dissertation proposal as well. So let's say there was 5 parts of my qualifying paper lit review. Well, only three stayed in my dissertation proposal. So, all right, that was my story. A little convoluted, but okay. Things stay in, or things go in, things come out. That's what it boils down to. So anyway, that's so and like I said, you don't have to put everything in. If it makes sense to have it in, so you're telling a more complete story, then leave it in. But if it doesn't make sense, then you don't. And if it doesn't make sense now, hold it out until your dissertation proposal. Okay. So moving a little bit ahead, trying to push forward a little bit. So I'm thinking about this is considering, because based on our discussions, based on where everyone kind of is, everyone is in a different place, and that's to be expected, and that's perfectly fine. So thinking about the lit review chat, okay, I was thinking about the lit review number 3. It should say chat, okay. I had kind of a brain freeze when I was putting this together. So thinking about making lit review chat number 3 optional, because it's only it's like 2 weeks or so, 2.5 weeks. Because this is it's great. I love talking to you. I love talking through this stuff. I like talking about research. I like talking about literature and theory and all that and all this interesting stuff. But because now we've got 4 weeks left, I really want the focus to be on the writing itself and getting because on the 17th I really want a super high quality product. Okay, so if a chat and setting all that up is going to detract from from the process of the writing process, then maybe making it optional, sort of on as needed basis, makes the most sense. I'm also rethinking the presentation due, which is due on the 30th, which is like today's the Wednesday, the 17th. So 2 weeks from yesterday. The next draft of your dissertation, the second draft of your lit review is due, and you're also going to do a presentation, a PowerPoint, 10-slide PowerPoint presentation on your lit review. So I'm rethinking this. I'm thinking, well, it kind of makes pedagogical sense to put together a presentation on your lit review, because then you have to be focused on, you have to kind of be able to explain the lit review that you're doing. Okay, it's one thing to write it, but then it's another thing to explain it, right? And by explaining it, then we kind of see our flaws or the errors or the things that we're missing, and we can go back and make corrections to that. So, but again, because time is nigh, I'm just kind of rethinking that. I haven't fully decided yet. I'm leaning towards, just, having the next draft and then a final draft and just kind of letting it go at that. I like I do like the idea of putting presentations together, but what end does it serve? What's the purpose of it? And so rethinking that. Okay, and then I wanted to talk a little bit about the review guide part A. I'm gonna talk about that in a second. I'm gonna just go to the next slide, which, oops, where'd it go? That's bizarre. Okay, well, I'll stop the share then. The next slide basically just said, just keep working on your lit review. Okay, that's what it says. All right, so let me share with you. Let me share another thing here. Where is it? Now I don't know where the heck it went. Oh, here we go. That's what I want right there. All right. So here's just, I just want to just go through it with you. We haven't talked through it at all. So so basically, okay, it's kind of basically starts on page 6. Okay. So, okay. All right, let's see here. All right, so and as I've been talking to you recently, in our last few days about our discussions, basically you're doing your part A as you're doing your lit review. Okay, the lit review serves to a great extent as your part A. Okay, so let's look at the requirement. Okay, which is adopted May 2018. Qualifying papers should review one or more bodies of literature. What are you doing now? You're reviewing one or more bodies of literature. Okay, the literature reviewed ideally should relate to the student's dissertation topic. Who would have thought? There is no expectation, however, that the review in the qualifying paper of approximately 20 pages. Oh, look at that. We reviewed 20 pages for the qualifying paper. Oh, okay. Will cover all relevant bodies of literature that the student will eventually have to discuss in chapter 2 of the dissertation. Remember, I said you don't have to have there's stuff that you can hold out and put it into your dissertation proposal, but you probably, in your part A, you'll probably talk about what literature you will in fact be looking at, which you've already looked at, and then you're just telling them what you've already looked at, and then what you will look at in your dissertation proposal. And then you've got the criteria. We've already gone through the criteria. Okay, so, and basically when you do your lit review, you're doing all these, you're covering all these criteria. So, it's not just you do. Remember, it's not like you do this, and this. It's it's all throughout the review. So, I think that's what I wanted to say. Okay. Oh, student will, okay, you work independently, obviously. You're working independently on your lit review, you work independently on your qualifying paper. Qualifying A paper is treated as an exam. And therefore, the student will receive minimal support from the professors who read the final paper. Well, you have a leg up because your lit review is almost the same as your qualifying paper, and I'm reading it and stuff like that. So, so then we'll be able to get into a really good final form, right? The support could include offering some advice as to literature to consult, possibly suggestions for organization, and a review and critique of an outline. Okay. So, okay. Yeah, so basically you're getting, as on this lit review / qualifying part A, you're kind of getting, from me at this point in time, you're getting the literature to consult, suggestions for organization, and I've been reviewing, critiquing your out. You have an outline, so basically you should feel like you're in pretty good shape right now in that regard. But do go over the guide again, and so we'll take it from there. Okay, so I think that is it for now. Oh yeah, we're at half an hour, and it's gonna be a pretty big upload. I didn't really mean to talk all this night. Like I said, I was kind of rambling through my own personal story, but you see the point is like what I had in didn't stay in for my dissertation proposal. It was interesting, very interesting. I really, I went back and I kind of looked at my lit review qualifying paper today, and I thought it was pretty good. I thought it was pretty interesting, but it did form the basis of my dissertation. So, and then the things that I found, the gaps, the weaknesses, I was able to address. So anyway, that's where you all are heading, and that's going to be a good thing. So again, it was great to chat with you this week. I appreciate the time you took out of your incredibly busy lives, and that's part of the reason why I'm kind of rethinking the having to do the presentation, having to making our next chat optional, because you're all professionals and you're all super busy. And one of the things I heard was like, I'm having a hard time trying to fit this all in, and finding time to spend quality time with this lit review. So maybe if by not having to do the presentation and not having to be compelled to talk to me, maybe that'll take some of the pressure off and you'll have more time to work on your lit review. That's my hope anyway. Okay, so that's about it. I wish you all well. I hope you're thriving. I really do hope you're enjoying reviewing literature that you probably wouldn't have come across anyway. So I hope you're learning new things, getting new ideas, things that are applicable not only to the lit review but also to your personal and professional lives. That's a good thing. So anyway, listen, take care, everybody. You want to chat, you need anything, just let me know. Okay, I'm available 84 hours a week, 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. Pacific time. So that's a good thing. So anyway, so take care, and I will talk with you very soon, I'm sure. All right, bye-bye, everyone. Bye-bye.